Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. We are pleased to welcome you sa press conference ng Philippine Statistics Authority para sa 2024 first quarter performance of the Philippine economy ngayong ika-9 ng Mayo 2024. Ako po si Angie Aicardo, ang inyong host for this press briefing. Para po sa ating guests na nais makibahagi sa ating talakayan, ang event po na ito ay naka-livestreamed sa PSA Facebook page at ang mga updates po ay tweeted sa PSA X account gamit ang hashtag PHGDP. Kaugnay nito, upang ibahagi ang mahalagang impormasyon o updates sa ating ekonomiya, ikinararangal ko pong ipakilala ang ating mga resource persons para sa press conference ng 2024 first quarter performance of the Philippine economy. Sila po ay sina Secretary Arsenio M. Balisacan ng National Economic and Development Authority at si National Statistician and Civil Registrar General Yusek Claire Dennis S. Mapa ng Philippine Statistics Authority. Nais din po naming kilalanin ang presensya ng iba pang mga opisyal ng NEDA at PSA na kasama po natin ngayon, on-site and virtually. Mula po sa NEDA, kasama po natin ngayon sina Undersecretary Melbourne D. Pana at Undersecretary Joseph J. Capuno. At mula naman po sa PSA, kasama po natin ngayon ang Deputy National Statistician ng Sectoral Statistics Office, si Dr. Divina Gracia L. Del Prado, at kasama rin po niya sina OIC Assistant National Statistician for Macroeconomic Accounts Service, Mr. Mark C. Pascasio, Assistant National Statistician for Social Sector Statistics Service, Mr. Adrian A. Cerezo, and OIC Assistant National Statistician for Economic Sector Statistics Service, Ms. Rachel C. Laksa. Ngayon, atin pong pakinggan ang ulat ni PSA Undersecretary Claire Dennis S. Mapa.
Magandang umaga sa ating lahat. Ang Philippine Statistics Authority mag-uulat ng estado ng ekonomiya ng bansa para sa unang quarter ng taong 2024. Ang Gross Domestic Product o GDP ng Pilipinas ay nagtala ng pagtaas na 5.7% sa unang quarter ng taong 2024. Ito ay mula sa naitalang 6.4% na pagtaas sa parehong quarter noong nakalipas na taon. Ang Gross National Income o GNI ay nagtala ng pagtaas na 9.7% sa unang quarter ng taong 2024. Gayon din, ang Net Primary Income from the rest of the world ay tumaas ng 57% sa unang quarter ng taong 2024. Sa Seasonally Adjusted National Account sa unang quarter ng taong 2024, ang GDP ay nagtala ng quarter-on-quarter na pagtaas ng 1.3%. Sa kabilang dako, ang GNI ay nagtala ng 0.8% quarter-on-quarter na paglago sa parehas na period. Ang mga pangunahing sektor ng ekonomiya na agriculture, forestry and fishing, industry, at services ay nagsipagtala ng mga pagtaas na 0.4%, 5.1% at 6.9% respectively. Sa seasonally adjusted GDP, ang industry ay nagtala ng may pinakamataas na paglago sa mga pangunahing sektor na may 2.6% quarter-on-quarter growth. Sinundan ito ng services na nagtala ng pagtaas na 1.0%. Samantala, ang agriculture, forestry, and fishing ay nagtala ng pagbaba na 0.3% sa quarter-on-quarter basis. Sa unang quarter ng taong 2024, ang per capita GDP ay tumaas ng 4.8%. Ito ay mula sa pagtaas na 5.6% sa parehong quarter noong nakalipas na taon. Ang per capita GNI at per capita household final consumption expenditure ay parehong nakapagtala ng pagtaas na 8.7% at 3.7% respectively. Sa naitalang pagtaas ng GDP na 5.7% sa unang quarter ng taong 2024, ang services ay nagtala ng may pinakamataas na kontribusyon na may 4.2 percentage points. Ito ay sinundan ng industry na nagtala ng contribution na 1.5 percentage points, habang ang agriculture, forestry, and fishing ay nakapag-ambag ng 0.03 percentage points sa kabuuang pagtaas ng GDP. Sa 16 na sektor ng GDP, ang accommodation and food service activities ay nagtala ng may pinakamataas na paglago na nasa 13.9% sa unang quarter ng taong 2024. Ito ay sinundan ng mga sumusunod: financial and insurance activities na tumaas ng 10%, other services na tumaas ng 8.52%, at human health and social work activities na tumaas ng 8.46%. Ang mga sektor naman na may malaking contribution sa pagtaas ng GDP sa unang quarter ng 2024 ay ang mga sumusunod: financial and insurance activities na nag-ambag ng 1.1 percentage points, wholesale and retail trade, repair of motor vehicles and motorcycles na nag-ambag ng 1.05 percentage points, at manufacturing na nag-ambag ng 0.9 percentage point. Sa demand side, ang imports of services ay nagtala ng may pinakamataas na paglago na nasa 24.4% sa unang quarter ng taong 2024. Ito ay sinundan ng mga sumusunod: exports of services na tumaas ng 8.9%, construction na tumaas ng 6.8%, at exports of goods na tumaas ng 5.8%. Sa unang quarter ng taong 2024, ang mga sektor na may pinakamalaking contribution sa pagtaas ng GDP sa expenditure side ay ang mga sumusunod: household final consumption expenditure na nag-ambag ng 3.5 percentage points, net exports of goods and services na nag-ambag ng 1.2 percentage points, at construction na nag-ambag ng 0.9 percentage point. Ang Philippine Statistics Authority ay malugod na nagpapasalamat sa inyong pagdalo sa National Accounts Press Conference para sa unang quarter ng taong 2024. Salamat at magandang umaga sa ating lahat.
Maraming salamat po, Undersecretary Papa, para sa ulat ng 2024 first quarter performance of the Philippine economy. Ngayon, atin naman pong pakinggan si NEDA Secretary Arsenio M. Balisacan para sa pahayag niya ukol sa 2024 first quarter performance of the Philippine economy.
Good morning, everyone. I speak before you today with a sense of optimism and pride. Despite our challenges on both domestic and international fronts, our economy continues to demonstrate remarkable resilience and growth. As Undersecretary Dennis Mapa reported, our gross domestic product increased by 5.7% in the first quarter of 2024. This performance retains the country's position as a leading force among Asia's emerging economies. Our first quarter GDP growth rate is about the same as Vietnam's, surpassing other major economies such as China at 5.3%, Indonesia at 5.1%, and Malaysia at 3.9%, but slower than India's projected growth rate of 6.2%. From the start of the year, we have been experiencing several shocks, the major ones being the long period of the heat wave, and related to that, the El Nino, and geopolitical tensions. Our first quarter economic performance is a testament to our people's and industry's resilience. Despite the damage caused by El Nino, our agriculture sector still managed to record growth, albeit at a slower pace of 0.4%. The industry sector, driven by growth in manufacturing and higher output of food, electronics, and chemical products, showed robust performance with a 5.1% increase. The services sector also grew by 6.9%, supported by the continued recovery of tourism-related activities. Fueling our optimism is the significant turnaround of the growth of the net export sector, which rebounded to 9.5%. This growth starkly contrasts with the contraction experienced in the same period last year at minus 11.8%, and in the fourth quarter of 2023 at minus 14.9%. The primary driver of this increase in our merchandise exports was the recovery in exports of electronic products. In contrast, merchandise imports remained muted due to a decline in imports of transport equipment. However, we must acknowledge the moderate growth in our domestic demand, which reflected the less favorable business sentiment. Construction slowed down, no doubt affected by prolonged periods of extreme heat. Household spending also slowed due to elevated prices of major food items and the heat wave. Meanwhile, government spending also slowed down, primarily due to the sliding of a large amount of expenditure to April this year, whereas the government made such spending in March last year. Ensuring food security remains the top goal. Given extreme weather conditions and climate change, we'll invest more in research and innovation to enable our agriculture and food systems to cope with this challenge. We have seen how preemptive measures have significantly mitigated the impact of El Nino on the agriculture sector. But a lot more needs to be done, in addition to adjustment in planting calendars. In the meantime, the government is committed to utilizing strategic trade policies to augment domestic production and establish mechanisms to empower consumers to combat inflation. We reiterate that failing to augment local production with importation during shortages can exacerbate food insecurity and perpetuate poverty. We will continue to implement a whole-of-government approach to alleviate the impact of El Nino while preparing for La Nina. We are collaborating with distribution utilities to manage the increasing electricity demand and working with private water concessionaires to address leaks and wastage, ensuring water security. We also continue to focus on spurring investments and creating employment opportunities. To achieve the target of attracting 7.7 million tourists this year, the Department of Tourism is focusing on improving quality tourism infrastructure projects and developing new tourism sites. The Build Better More Infrastructure Program and the National Housing Program, or PORPH, will also significantly improve our physical and social infrastructure. The full implementation of the PPP code through the issuance of its implementing rules and regulations is expected to increase private sector participation in financing major projects. President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. issued Executive Order Number 59, primarily to expedite the implementation of our 185 infrastructure flagship projects, or IFPs, with an indicative total cost of about 9.14 trillion pesos. We also intend to take advantage of trade deals such as the CHIPS Acts of the United States, which aims to improve the country's semiconductor product assembly, testing, and packaging. We expect the CHIPS Act to lead to more investment in higher value-added segments in the semiconductor supply chain. Moreover, it will also support the country's effort to explore and tap into natural reserves of green metals such as nickel, copper, and cobalt. We also see opportunities to strengthen and establish new ties through bilateral agreements such as those with Qatar and Japan, and to promote tourism investments and mutual visits. We also expect the digital economy to continue expanding as the government enables businesses, particularly micro, small, and medium enterprises, or MSMEs, to adapt to digitalization and leverage the rise of emerging technologies such as 5G, cloud computing, and artificial intelligence. To advance workforce development, the government will collaborate with the private sector to enhance the content of training programs for workers and employers. This initiative will integrate courses on cutting-edge productivity or productivity tools utilizing emerging technologies. The passage of the Konektadong Pinoy Bill will help reduce barriers to entry in data transmission sector and upgrade physical and digital infrastructure to enable greater participation in the digital economy. Despite limited fiscal space, government spending will continue to support growth by improving efficiency at all levels in delivering priority programs and projects. The government's ongoing efforts to roll out the implementation of full devolution, along with efforts to strengthen the capacity of local government units, will facilitate the effective implementation of the Supreme Court ruling on the Mandanas Garcia case. In addition, we need to improve collection efficiency by streamlining and digitalizing tax and custom administration. The Maharlika Investment Fund can be tapped as an additional funding source to facilitate investment in priority sectors. Finally, we need to acknowledge the urgency of addressing the impact of climate change. Thus far, we have seen how an extended high heat index disrupted schooling, work, and the economy, and even endangered the lives of the most vulnerable. The swift decision to revert to the old school calendar is a crucial step to protect the health of the students and teachers. However, much more needs to be done. It's important to develop an action plan to ensure the health and safety of all, especially the vulnerable. Install the necessary cooling features in workspaces, schools, homes, and public spaces. Adjust work schedules as necessary, but ensure businesses and service continuity. Let me reiterate that the economic team has taken to heart the President's directives by ensuring that the necessary policies are in place as we work toward realizing a bagong Pilipinas. Our major decisions are always evidence-based and data-driven. Our goal is to facilitate massive investments and physical and human capital to create more and better jobs, improve our economy's competitiveness, and, most importantly, reduce poverty to single-digit levels by 2028. Despite various risks and challenges, the economic outlook for the Philippines in the near and medium term remains bright. With hard work and the right policies in place, we are confident that we will achieve our growth target of 6.0 to 7.0% this year. The Marcos administration remains committed to achieving rapid, sustained, and inclusive economic growth, leading to matatag, maginhawa at panatag na buhay for all Filipinos. Thank you, and good morning once again.
Maraming salamat po, Secretary Balisacan. Before we proceed po to the open forum, we would like to acknowledge the presence of Assistant Secretary Roderick M. Planta from the National Economic and Development Authority. Good morning po, sir. Okay, dumako na po tayo sa open forum. Ngunit bago po natin simulan, nais po namin muling pasalamatan ang lahat ng press and media partners na kasama sa press briefing po na ito. Para po sa maayos na pagsasagawa ng ating open forum, ay narito po ang ilang mga paalala. Para po sa mga online participants, maaari po ninyong gamitin ang raise hand feature ng Zoom kung nais po ninyong direktang magtanong sa ating mga resource persons. Kapag kayo po ay natawag upang magtanong, pakisabi po muna ang inyong pangalan at organisasyong kinabibilangan bago po ang inyong tanong. Maaari din po kayo magpadala ng inyong katanungan gamit ang Zoom chat box. Siguraduhin lamang po na nakalagay ang inyong pangalan at ang inyong organization na kinabibilangan. Panatilihin pong nakamute ang inyong mga mic kung kayo po ay hindi pa natatawag upang magtanong. Para naman po sa ating on-site participants, pakitaas lamang po ang inyong kamay kung nais po ninyong magtanong sa ating mga resource persons at hintayin lamang po na kayo ay ma-acknowledge. Kapag kayo po ay natawag, pakisabi po ang inyong pangalan at organisasyong kinabibilangan bago po ang inyong tanong. Para naman po sa kopya ng press kits, ipapadala po ito ng aming mga staff sa inyo through email. Okay, ngayon handa na po tayo sa open forum. Okay, first question po from Mr. Michael Flores.
Hi, good morning, Enes. Good morning, Psych-RC. Yusek Mapa, just to confirm now, if the 4.6% household final consumption is the slowest since the first quarter of 2021.
Ito yung quarterly growth rates ng ating household final consumption expenditure. No? Last year, Q1 2023, it was 6.4%. Q2 2023, 5.5%. Q3 2023, 5.1%. Nag-bounce back siya noong Q4 2023 at 5.3%. And then humaba ngayon, Q1 2024 at 4.6%.
And if you look at the time series, this is the slowest, tama ba, since first quarter of 2021?
Yeah, the times 2021. It's the slowest Q3 of 2010 for the household final consumption expenditure growth rate.
Okay. And Psych-RC, we've seen the consumption slowing down. How much weight does the high interest rate environment bear on this slowing consumption and also high inflation? And if you also look at gross capital formation, we've also seen a significant slowdown in growth. Where would you attribute that slowdown?
It is a combination of factors, both domestic and external. On the domestic front, it's obviously the elevated inflation and the high interest rates. But note that the high interest rates, particularly the policy rates that were implemented by ADB, was meant to address certain issues, one on the interest and the inflation, but also in response to the other policy rates, other interest, the global interest rates, particularly in our trading partners, because our economy is very much integrated with the rest of the world, particularly our capital accounts. And then we have, of course, the El Nino, the heat intense, obviously affected the service sector. People don't want to go out, so hot, and I think that also affected construction. But in terms of the capital formation, I think these are the lag effects already of the relatively elevated interest rates. As you know, those interest rates in the past 4 quarters, 5 quarters are still being felt today. So that may linger for a while. But what's so encouraging, though, is that despite these developments, our exports were able to recover from high negatives in last year, especially in the first quarter and in the fourth quarter. And actually, a more significant to me development is the quarter-on-quarter is actually the seasonal adjusted growth is actually positive. As opposed to what we were seeing in the last 2 quarters, when the seasonally adjusted growth were negative. So we are seeing quite a reversal of seasonal growth. So hopefully we can continue in that track, and that gives us the confidence that we should be able to achieve the target for the year of 6 to 7%.
Sir, can you give us also guidance on how, in your view, the economy will have performed in the second quarter, given that the April to June period is the peak of El Nino and it has had significant impact particularly on the agriculture sector?
But I think that the mitigation efforts that we have that government put in place sort of softened the impact of the El Nino. I would have thought that the impact would be worse than what actually happened. It's not to say that it was not a serious harm, no, done to especially to some areas and certain groups of our population, but nonetheless, I think that we are able to bounce back, no, from otherwise a worse situation. So I think that unless we see a reversal in the gains that we are making in tempering the inflation, particularly food and energy, we don't see any reason why the second quarter should be any weaker than the first quarter. On the other hand, as I've seen earlier, we have shown earlier the major aspect of portion of the expenditure, government expenditure that would have been released in the first quarter was released in April, and the bulk check, and that's for the second quarter. So I think that while we don't see government final consumption expenditure and construction, public construction as robust in the first quarter as in a comparable quarter last year, we expect to catch that up in the second quarter.
Thank you, Secretary Balisacan. Do we have other questions po from our on-site media partners? Okay, our media partner at the back. Go ahead, ma'am.
Good morning. This is Denise Osorio from PTV4. Sir, you mentioned that there are current infrastructure flagship projects that are going to be prioritized. Could we know which or what type of infrastructure flagship projects these are?
Can you say that again? Sorry, I don't. Yes.
Sir, good morning.
Yeah, we have many of these IFPs, no? The infrastructure flagship projects under varying stages of implementation. These are big tickets, potentially game changers, supporting a lot of job generation and growth for the economy. Broadly, we are keeping our target of 5 to 6% of our GDP spent on infrastructure. We are mindful of the delays in the past of implementing infrastructure. And recently, the President has issued an executive order, no? That's Executive Order 50, 50, or 59, addressing the causes of those delays. No? For example, the delays in issuing right-of-ways, permits, and so on by both national government agencies, regulatory agencies, local government units. We are working closely with the ARTA to ensure that this executive order is implemented effectively so that we won't see any delays in the substantial delays in the implementation of these infrastructure projects.
Yes, sir, but what type of infrastructure projects are we looking at?
There are many. Many of these are physical connectivity projects, roads, bridges, railways, including water projects for irrigation, drainage, and even social sector projects like hospitals and particularly specialty hospitals and and those needed by our education sector. Uh, we have, for example, 134 projects worth 141 billion US dollars for physical connectivity. No? For health, we have 5 projects worth 1.6 billion US dollars. We also have digital connectivity projects. There are 3 of those in the IFPs. And for powered energy, we have 1. Agriculture, these are mainly, as I said, irrigation and mainly irrigation, worth 3.8 billion US dollars. Many of these projects are under various stages of implementation. Many of them will be completed during the administration of the president, but many of them will spill into the next administration for completion.
Thank you, Secretary. Okay, before I call on Ms. Kai for the next question, I was informed by the NEDA PR that Ms. Denise, they will reach out to you po for the copy of the IFP list. Thank you so much. Okay, for the next question po, Ms. Kai.
Hi, sir. Good morning po. Sir, we just wanted to know ano yung other measures apart from EO 59, AO 20 commodities, yung EO on commodities that the government, well, specifically the IAC-IMO is recommending to further bring down prices. Also, are you thinking of reducing rice tariffs? Is that an option now given the slowdown in consumption?
Right sizing. Sorry that kaya sorry, nagbabounce siya. Can you say
Sorry, ano lang sir, we just want to ask regarding other measures that IAC-IMO is thinking of in order to further contain inflation apart from the EO 59, AO 20, etc. And do you think it's time to further cut the rice tariffs to allow more Filipinos to be able to afford it? Thank you.
Okay, let's first note that the overall objective in the agriculture sector and this food sector as a whole, including manufacturing and distribution, is to increase the overall productivity, the efficiency, reduce cost in the production of goods, manufacture of goods, to make our sector more competitive and lower prices. No? So there are both short-term measures and medium-term and long-term measures we are putting in place to ensure that those gains in productivity are sustained. No? For the short-term measures, the recommendations of the Interagency Committee on Inflation and Market Outlook are summarized put together in that AO 20, Administrative Order 20, and essentially what that AO 20 is to simplify the processing system in government, particularly those that will involve requests for importation or the getting the permits requests or necessary papers and paperwork required for the importation of goods, particularly inputs and products, agricultural products that are in short supply in the country. Because what we have noticed, looking at the data, is that either when we needed the imports to augment the shortage in supply because production is falling short of consumption, the import is either arriving um, at the wrong time or the untimely arrival of imports. That is, they come in when precisely farmers are already about to harvest or are harvesting. That, of course, will depress the price even more, no? So that, and then also the level of imports are inadequate to cover the shortage at affordable prices. No, of course, supply is always equal to demand. In the market. No, but if that equation of supply and demand it comes at a very high price, that is not what we want. No, we want those prices to be those commodities to be affordable. And so we have to reduce those prices. That means that there would be shortages at those prices, and that's where we needed the imports. No? So it turns out that there are so many of those unnecessary processes in government that delays the processing of requests for importations, and worse, the use of non-tariff measures, no, to substitute for tariffs, no? And these measures are not good at all because it doesn't make the ecosystem, the policy environment transparent and predictable, no, because that destabilizes the market even more. When traders, players, even our producers would not know whether they should come in or produce more if they don't know what the government will do, if they bring in too much import or they won't import at all. So yung mga ganong uncertainty in the market is what the AO20 is trying to address. Remove those uncertainties so that all the players in the economy can make reasonable, informed judgment and informed decision, so that efficiency is improved and cost is reduced. So yeah, and then of course in the medium term to long term, investments, nothing less than investment in those sectors would be required. And what is quite stark in our country is that you have so much water, yet you have many of our farmers don't have access to water, right? So water is flowing in the wrong places, no? Right? And that means that we haven't developed effective irrigation systems for our farmers. We have got to ensure that we develop those, we capture those water, preserve those water, and use them when farmers need them most. No? So that's a lot of work for our agriculture sector, for our infrastructure related agencies, like including DPWH, no? To develop, construct, maintain irrigation systems, drainage system, flood control systems, and so on. Kasi, you get a lot of water, but you are not able to impound them so that you can use them during times of drought or dry months, no? It's sad that our government, many administrations in the past haven't invested well enough into this irrigation systems, effective irrigation system, particularly even small impounding water systems. You go into many areas around Asia, you see massive, widespread irrigation systems that raise. It's so important for us because in many areas, including in my own region, we only have distinct wet and dry season, right? If you don't have any irrigation, you can only plant once a year, that during the dry season. If you have a good irrigation system, you can plant 2-3 times a year. So that's effectively doubling the land area, for farmers. Farmers may have farm sizes, but if these are properly provided with good irrigation and water management systems, they can make those lands utilize in multiple ways during the academic fiscal year, no? Calendar year.
Thank you, Secretary. Ms. Kai has another question.
Sorry, sir. Just a follow-up regarding the rice tariffs. At least temporarily, is that something that we can consider to reduce rice prices temporarily?
The tariff.
Tariffs, sorry.
Well, what we are seeing, the timing then kasi is very important. Number one, we are doing now a comprehensive review of the entire tariff structure. That's going to the NEDA board pretty soon. We are done at the technical level and the committee level of this comprehensive tariff review, including the tariffs for agriculture. All right. And we are going to elevate that result of this review to the NEDA board in its next meeting. The overall intention of that review is to further structure the tariff regime so that we can have a more efficient, competitive economy, no? So that we don't have cases where some industries have low tariffs for their outputs, for the outputs that they produce, but they face high tariffs for the inputs that they use for their production, effectively making them losing competitiveness. Those are the kind of things that, for example, in food processing, the major input there is the raw material is agricultural produce, right? Agricultural produce. If you have highly priced, very costly agricultural products coming from our agricultural sector because they have very high tariffs, then the products that our food processors, like your your dried mango, for example, or fruit juices. Ang dami niyan, mga small and medium enterprises, right? Even the ones, sabi ko sa nagtitinda ng banana queue sa UP Diliman, where every time sabi, bakit kakaunti na lang asukal yung yung banana mo? Sabi niya, ang mahal na ng sugar, sir, ganon. So, many sectors are affected by highly distorted tariff structure. So that's what we are trying to streamline and to restructure so that we can have a much more broad-based sources of growth, and so that employment generation and growth in many sectors of the economy can happen.
Thank you so much, Secretary Balisacan. Next question po from Mr. Andreo Calonzo.
Hello, sir. Sir, sa good news po muna, we saw exports turn around this quarter. You mentioned it's due to the electronics recovery. So, what specifically is driving that, and how do we plan to capitalize on that, sir?
Well, yeah. There are in the recent trips of the president, where he has met with many business delegations and in the tripartite meetings with Japan, US, they discuss about getting the Philippines into this supply chain, And in this part of the world, we are actually an important player for semiconductors. And if we can leverage that to also develop downstream and upstream industries. For example, we have potentials to supply the, the requirements of this rapidly growing green economy. No, I'm referring to extractive minerals like nickel, copper, cobalt that are used for the development or manufacturing of new technologies, no? Including solar panels, batteries. So if we can get not just the extraction but process those minerals in the country, then you get much more value adding for those activities and could generate a lot of downstream and upstream economic activities. That's what we are working on, that we are able to attract those investors to go into this extractive mining, but in ways that are sustainable and environment friendly. We address the issues and environment, and more importantly, the development of those linkages of those activities with manufacturing. So that if that can happen, if you succeed in getting that, I think that you would open up another driver for growth in the medium to long term.
Sir, and on the flip side, sir, you mentioned that heat was caused a slowdown in construction and consumption last quarter. But we all know, we all felt that heat was even more intense in the past few months. So do you see that still becoming a drag in the second quarter? And how do we, on projections that this heat will continue even in the next few years. So how will the government manage that? How will we mitigate the impact of that extreme heat to our economy?
Now I don't see any. Having been in government for a while, I don't see any more serious efforts now in dealing with climate change than what we are putting today. And because we see it, now, we experience it now almost on a daily basis. No? So we are putting a lot of attention there. Key there is really innovation. We are encouraging, as you know, NEDA is also spearheading the efforts to get this innovation ecosystem coming up quickly so that we can get our people, our entrepreneurs, our startups, our even ordinary citizens come up with solutions to our daily problems. On a bigger scale, of course, we need a lot of investment, including infrastructure development to address climate change, especially for adaptation, especially in vulnerable areas like agriculture. And we are tapping development institutions to augment our capacity there, particularly in the financing of adaptation measures. We have a lot of that ongoing now, under development with ADB, with the World Bank, and we're also looking at the private sector opportunities. There are many of them offering, but of course, still many of these technologies and financing methods are still very expensive, and so for us, it's a kind of a balancing act.
Thank you po, Secretary Balisacan. Okay, at this point, if it's all right po, let's give way to the questions sent via Zoom chat. Okay. Okay, we have several questions here from Miss Eileen Mencias of Abante. Her first question is for Yusek Mapa. Please allow me to paraphrase the question. May we please have the growth in consumer spending and how big is it in relation to the economy in expenditure terms?
Okay, yung ating household, no, si Eileen siguro referring to the household final consumption expenditure. As I reported kanina, yung first quarter 2024 natin, growth rate is 4.6. Yung share ng household final consumption expenditure on the expenditure side sa GDP ay about 74.5% during the first quarter of 2024.
Thank you, Yusek Mapa. She has another question for you, Yusek. The 4.6% growth in household spending in the first quarter is the slowest since when? Follow-up question po. If you discount the shock from the pandemic, what was the slowest growth in household spending?
Okay, yung growth rates natin, yung kasi nung 2020, 2021, under pandemic, mayroon tayong series of negative growth rates sa household final consumption expenditure. Ang pinakamababa, of course, ay doon sa quarter 2, 2020, kung saan yung growth rate niya ay negative 15.3%. Quarter 3 ng 2020, negative 9.2%, and then Q4 of 2020, negative 7.3%. Q1 2021, negative 4.8. So ito yung apat na quarters noong 2020-2021 kung saan nagkaroon tayo ng negative growth rates sa household final consumption expenditure. Before this, pre-pandemic, ang kanina sabi ko nga yung pinakamababa ay noong quarter 3 of 2010 kung saan ang growth rate ay 2.6% sa HFCE. Thank you.
Thank you po, Yusek Mapa. Last question for Ms. Eileen Mencias. This time it's for Secretary Balisacan. Secretary, can you please expound on what you meant about the less favorable business sentiment? What exactly did you mean by that po?
Well, BSP conducts a regular business expectation survey, no? And they ask businesses about their sentiments in the next quarter, the next 2 quarters, and so on, no? For 2020, for the first quarter of 2024, the business sentiment was less upbeat, no? Stemming mainly from concerns on the post-holiday downturns, reduced business activities, elevated inflation, and the adverse effects of El Nino on the agriculture sector. So those are some of the things that they are concerned of.
Thank you so much, Secretary Balisacan. Okay, since we only have a few minutes remaining, our resource persons can only accommodate the last 3 questions po at this time. Okay, next question po, our media partner at the back. Mr. Jason.
Hello, Secretary.
Hi, good morning.
Hello, good morning po. Secretary, may we have your statement po doon lang sa sinabi po ng Bank of America na magkakaroon po ng serious economic damage, yung patuloy na sigalot between Pilipinas and China, and magkakaroon ito ng impact sa Chinese trade, tourism, and investment po sa Pilipinas. Ano po ang ginagawa ngayon ng gobyerno para matugunan ito at mapigilan yung sinasabing economic damage po sa ating bansa?
Yeah, we are not insofar as the working of businesses and the economy. We are not turning against China. It's on the other hand, we are looking at all these opportunities that even our Chinese businesses could wish deploy in the Philippines. Of course, insofar as for example, projects are concerned, we want to ensure that the implementation of our projects, like our infrastructure, would not be affected by geopolitical tensions, no? So that our approach is when we have a project, we open it up to all partners or development partners, whether these are bilateral or multilateral, like ADB or AIIB, and we choose which one is most advantageous to the government and to the country. Just like what happened, for example, with some of the railways projects, no, that were committed by China to fund many years back, no, during the previous administration. They were not implemented at all. No, funding was not provided. And in the process, of course, that delayed the implementation of these very important projects, because these are infrastructure. No? And so now our approach is to open those up to any other party who would want to come in. In the meantime, I don't think that there is any attempt at all to disadvantage, say, Chinese investors in the Philippines, particularly the private investors, just because we have these issues on the West Philippine Sea. It's not that's not the case. In fact, we are quite encouraged that despite this tension, you see this growth still very remarkable. Even our growth, as we pointed out, is now is one among the best, fastest growing in Asia, no? Emerging Asia, even higher than that of China now, no? So it's not there does not seem to be any indication at all that we are negative, that these issues have remarkable adverse effects on the economy. The slowdown that we have seen is not just Philippine. It's everywhere in the world. Remember that even IMF, the forecast of IMF for 2024 for the global is 3.3%. No, and that's still lower than the pre-pandemic. So in every country has slowed down. The good thing is, inflation in many countries globally has come down faster than previously anticipated. So that's positive. And so I think that we are in good shape, as I mentioned, and we need to just keep working on the constraints to inclusive growth, so that particularly those that have to do with our adaptation to climate change, which I feel will require tremendous efforts on our part.
Thank you, Secretary. Okay, for the next question, I saw Ms. Jasperl raising her hand a while ago. Ms. Jasperl.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Jasper Tan from the Daily Manila Shimbun. Sir, I'd like to ask, what kinds of measures is the government taking up to formalize the industries that are part of the informal economy, as well as promote MSMEs and reduce the poverty rate to below 10%?
Yeah, I think that that's a very good question, because as you know, MSMEs that are really the backbone of the economy. More than 60% of the economy are represented by MSMEs, no? And many of them are in the informal sector. Our effort to digitalize the economy, to ramp up the access to digitalization, to internet will and should benefit the small and medium enterprises, and that should speed up their transition to the formal sector. I think that when we are done with the efforts to fully digitalize the economy, starting with the public sector now, which I'm sure many of you have had some undesirable experiences, linking with government agencies. But we hope that as we roll out this quite significant efforts on our infrastructure to improve our digital infrastructure, that experience would be a thing of the past. We dream of the day when we don't have the government office, right? Physically to get our license, to open up a bank account, or even in your office. Just like in my office, I think not now, no. But before, when they want to take a leave, they still have to go to the office to file a leave physically, no. But hopefully, I think that now they can do that digitally. They don't have to come to the office. That way also, I think that the other part why we are so much keen of getting the informal sector is that we want to achieve a level playing field between the brick and mortar establishments and the e-commerce, no. In that way, we can actually have also a better control of our fiscal resources in the form of revenues, because as the economy goes into more and more digital e-commerce, and our taxes are dependent on the formal and the non-digital, then you lose a lot of revenues. And that's the experience of many countries, and that's why every government is now trying to speed up their digitalization.
Sir, sorry, could you be a bit more specific about which policies will be used and how they will be implemented for the formalization of the informal economy?
What policy? What's that again? What policies?
What policies?
Policies to bring the formal economy.
Yes, sir.
The informal economy.
Yes,
I think wide-ranging yun. First, the inclusive finance. I think that's a major effort of our government, and that's led by BSP, no, and with the help of many of the other agencies. I think that their access to finance is key, no, to getting them into the formal economy. Their access to our institutions. I mentioned earlier about our the digitalization of the private sector. For example, I remember that in the past, in an effort to get revenues, we require enterprises to file taxes every month, every quarter. No, that's so costly for small and medium enterprises. No, who don't have specialty people to do that kind of filing, and the system of filing is so cumbersome. It's not digitalized. So those efforts should help bring them in and become part of the formal sector. It will be good for everyone. It will also be good for the workers of those small and medium enterprises. If they become members, for example, of SSS, or then they will have a better access to the insurance and yeah.
And sir, lastly, are there any specific measures also that the government is taking up to be able to reduce the poverty to lower than 10%?
Oh, yeah, very much at the heart of the Philippine Development Plan. No, all the programs that we are put in there, the economic and the social are geared toward improving the socioeconomic conditions of our people. No, and from numerically that will mean also getting that poverty incidence to a single digit level. As I keep saying in many fora and sharing with you, the only sustainable way of raising the welfare of people, particularly the low-income groups, is to improve the productivity of their assets, and their main assets is their human capital, right? So you have to improve the human capital in such a way that they would be able to take advantage of economic opportunities that are fast opening up, or opening up by these fast evolving technologies. No? This is even more so now with all these new technologies, including artificial intelligence, is changing the way we work and changing the opportunities for our workforce. So it's even more important now that you get to develop that human capital fast. And so that's one. That's on the supply side, no? Doon naman sa demand, the demand for our workers. There's nothing more that effective than massive investments, no? That will complement labor for production. That's why you have seen that our focus, the president's focus, is going to many forums, to countries to sell our country as a potential investment destination, a favorable investment destination, because we need to get those investments, especially investments that will generate high quality jobs. Ang problema natin is not so much the trabaho per se. Kasi if you look at our labor statistics, our labor market is very robust, with now unemployment rate at 3.9%. That's very low compared to even developed countries, no? So it's not, but that's not what is now important, more important. What is more important now is the quality of that employment, and that includes the formal versus informal market kanina, no? So we need to get investments in the right places, in manufacturing, in high quality service sector, in tourism, in even in now these green technologies, to create those high quality jobs. That way, increases in or the reduction in the unemployment will be accompanied by increases in actual incomes, no? And wages. So yun ang focus natin. And if we are able to get these two together effectively, we should be able to achieve that single-digit poverty level by 2028. Now, there is another element there, no? for inclusive growth, kasi inclusive growth yung ano natin, there will always be members of the population who are not able to participate in the market, no, in the growth. Perhaps because they have certain physical conditions, perhaps they have family members who have, so unfortunately lost their earning members, mga ganon. So there will be always people like that and households like that. So what we hope to do is to strengthen our social protection system, including our insurance system, and that also includes the DSW, this 4-piece program, for example, and the one that we'll be launching soon, the food stamps programs, so that even as you are not actively engaged in the economy because of your physical circumstances or your family's circumstances, you are still able to continue with your education. You are not forced to drop out of school simply because your parents are not able to job, or they passed away, or something like that. You remain in school, and there are also some safety nets that will allow households who drop because of, say, natural calamities. Yun ang problema sa atin eh. Kapag may bagyo, ang daming nasisira, so many households are put back to the beginning. Sana mas malakas yung safety net system natin para people, when they are affected by calamities, they don't have to drain their only savings, or pull out their children from school just to survive. No? If you have a good safety net system, you should be able to smooth your consumption. So yun ang what we are trying to put up now, and the President has already approved our social protection floors framework, and we will progressively implement this, especially as our economy is able to absorb more space for the spending needed to put in place a welfare enhancing social protection system.
Thank you very much, Secretary Balisacan. Okay, at this point, our resource persons can only accommodate the last one question. For the last question, Ms. Irish.
Hello. Good morning po. Irish from Business World. My last question is, as the inflation rate and unemployment rate continue to increase, do you expect the household consumption to rebound, or do we see further weakening? What are the government's plans that could possibly affect the growth of the private consumption? Thank you.
Yeah, I think we have, my best bet is that the worst of the inflation is over, but as the BSP keeps reminding us, there are still some positive risk there, upside risk, and so we keep on guard and ensure that we are able to manage any uptick in the prices, no. So I think if we can get our public perceive that the future is, or expect that the future down the road, the months ahead are of low inflation, moderating inflation that could perk up consumption. No? Of course, there is also as you noticed there in the presentation earlier, the durable consumption equipment, no? Consumption of durable equipment also was quite low. The growth was quite low. I think that's the likely effects of the high inflation. High interest rates. I mean, the interest rates. So uh, if we don't see, as I said earlier, the globally inflation is coming down faster than earlier expected, unless the deterioration in the Middle East, the situation in the Middle East will deteriorate. We should see this continued improvement, and even domestically, we should see loosening of the rates eventually, and once that happens, then that creates its own momentum in the economy.
Thank you very much, Secretary. Okay. Dito na po nagtatapos ang ating open forum. Nais po naming pasalamatan ang ating mga resource persons, NEDA Secretary Arsenio M. Balisacan and PSA Undersecretary Dennis S. Mapa. Maraming salamat din po sa iba pang mga opisyal ng NEDA at PSA na kasama natin ngayon. Gayon din po sa ating mga media partners na nakilahok sa press conference na ito ng Philippine Statistics Authority para sa 2024 first quarter performance of the Philippine economy. Sana po ay patuloy po ninyo kaming suportahan. Maaari po ninyong bisitahin ang PSA website sa www.psa.gov.ph para sa karagdagang updates. Muli ako po si Anjay Cardo from PSA. Magandang umaga po.